All right, my fifth graders, what's up? I'm sorry I can't be in person today. So we're doing science asynchronously, all right? So for today's investigation, you will need your science journal, all right? A pencil and a pen or a pen. You will need a glass of water, which we'll be using to suck out of, all right? You will need your blue or white measuring spoon. You will need a craft stick or something to stir with. You will need a container of salt, a syringe, and a empty plastic cup. Of this, for me, already has water in it, so I can easily transition because I can't fill a syringe with one hand. All right, so those are supplies that you will need, all right? And because we're doing this asynchronously, I'm gonna have moments where I'm gonna have you, during this lesson, write in your journal. You're gonna have to make predictions. I'm gonna ask questions, and I want you to write those questions in your journal and then write your answers, all right? So at the top of your journal, open it up to a new page and put today's date, which is October 16th. I'm really making this on like October 9th, but you're watching this on October 16th. All right, so today's date is October 16th. All right, so how are we doing? All right, science class. All right, so first I want to start by asking you, how can we tell? So the first question is, you're gonna write down, how can you tell when a mixture has become a solution? All right, so the question you're writing in your journal is, how can you tell when a mixture has become a solution? We're going to talk about all these answers next class, all right? But I want you to have your answers ready. So when I get to next class on Monday, I'm going to expect a lot of us to be able to raise and share our ideas, all right? So how can you tell when a mixture becomes a solution? Write that question down and write your answer. All right, so you can pause this. All right, but I'm going to keep going. You can pause, you can unpause, all right? So now we know that a solution can be made, right, by adding salt to it. All right, so we can make a salt solution. But what would happen if we added another spoonful of salt to the solution, right? So we normally add one of these blue spoons, right? One of these blue scoops, or two of our white scoops, right? So if you had a blue scoop, what would happen if you added a second or a third scoop of salt to your water and stirred it? And if you had a white scoop, what if you added 4 or 5 scoops of salt to your 50 milliliters of water and stirred it? What do you think would happen? So go ahead and write that question down. What would happen if you added 2 or 3 extra scoops of salt and added it to 50 milliliters of water? Do you make a prediction? Do you think it would dissolve and still be a solution? Would all that salt dissolve in 50 milliliters of water? So go ahead and maybe pause this, write down those questions, and then write your predictions. So now I want to introduce 2 vocabulary words for you, all right? So these are very important. So the first word is the solvent, S-O-L-V-E as in energy, N as in Nancy, T as in tiger, solvent. Now the solvent is basically the liquid. The solvent is the substance that you want to dissolve something into, right? I want to dissolve salt into the water. So the water is the solvent, S-O-L-V-E-N-T. The solvent is the liquid or the substance that you want to dissolve something into, right? So water is the solvent. Tea is the solvent. Coffee could be the solvent, right? Now there's a solute, S-O-L-U-T-E. The solute is the material you want to dissolve. So salt is a solute, right? Sugar is a solute. It is the material you want to make dissolve, to make evenly distribute amongst water, right? So we have the solvent, which is the liquid you want to dissolve something into, and then you have the solute, which is the substance which you want to dissolve. All right, so this vocabulary, we're going to keep using this. All right, so earlier I asked you do you think that 2 or 3 scoops of salt would dissolve in 50 milliliters of water? So now I have another question for you to write down in your science journal. I want you to come up with a plan. So maybe you write, my plan to figure out how much salt can dissolve in 50 milliliters of water. So how much of a solute, salt, is able to be dissolved in the solvent, the water? So I want you to take a couple minutes, pause this video, and write your plan for how you would try to figure out how much of the solute can be dissolved in the solvent. I'm gonna start using these terms. You guys gotta become accustomed with them, right? How much solute can be dissolved in one solvent without adding more water? We have to keep it at 50 milliliters of water. Write your plan right now. All right, so we have a challenge. So right now, I want you to take your plastic cup and I want you to measure 50 milliliters of water into your syringe and empty it into your plastic cup. All right. Once you have done that, go ahead and take your blue or white spoon. All right. Once you have done that, I want you, if you have the blue spoon, I want you to take one. I'm going to flip this. If you have the blue spoon, take one. Can't do this with one hand. I want you to take 1 spoonful of salt and add it. If you have the white scoop, go ahead and take 2 scoops. And I want you to stir your cup for about 30 seconds or so. All right, we're going to stir it. We want to make sure it's all dissolved. All right. Remember, our plan is to figure out how much salt, how much of the solute can be dissolved in the solvent, how much salt can be dissolved in water. All right. So I'm stirring, right? We need to stir very good and long. All right. Your arm should be tired. All right. Now look. Look down. There's no salt left. All right. So there's no salt left. So all the salt or the solute is dissolved. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me, my first sneeze on live TV. All right. So thank you for those of you who said bless you. All right. So all my salt was dissolved in the water. All the solute was dissolved in the solvent. So now, right, the goal and the plan is to figure out how much salt can be dissolved. So now what you're going to do is once your salt dissolves, you're going to add 1 more scoop. All right, you're going to add 1 scoop at a time. So you're going to take another scoop, you're going to pour it in, and you're going to stir. And you're going to stir, right? The plan is to dissolve all the salt. So we're going to stir, stir, right? So you're going to keep doing that. You're going to stir and stir and stir. And if all your salt is dissolved, right, if all the salt is dissolved into the water, add another spoonful. And you're going to keep adding, stirring, and observing until you start to see salt particles on the bottom of your container. All right, but remember, when we're doing this, do not add any more water to your container. It's very important that everyone starts with 50 milliliters of water. So you're going to go ahead and pause this and do that right now. All right, so now in our journal, I have a few questions I'm going to want you to write down and to respond to. So your first question is, what happened to the salt when you put it in the water? What happened to the salt when you put it in the water? Write your answer, question and answer. Your second question, where is the salt now? Where has it ended up? Question number 3, What happened to the level of the liquid? What happened to the water level? All right. Question number 4. If your water level stayed the same, why did it stay the same? If your water level sunk, went lower, why did it decrease? If your water level increased, why did it increase? All right, so all 4 of those questions you should write down, and underneath them, I want you to write your answer. All right, thank you everyone. Remember, I'm going to have your participation grade for this class and showing that you're on task is I'm going to have you upload your journal questions and predictions and answers, have you upload them to Google Classroom to show that you watched this video and you did your work on time. This work will be due probably by the end of today, Friday the 16th. You know what? I'll make it Sunday. I'm feeling good. You have to upload it by Sunday night. All right. So that's the 18th, October 18th. You need to upload pictures of your science journal showing that you watched the video and answered all these questions. All right. So after you have answered those 4 questions, all right, let's talk. We're going to talk about the word saturation. Everyone write this word in your journal. All right. A saturated solution. Saturated, S-A-T-U-R-A-T-E-D, saturated solution, S-O-L-U-T-I-O-N. All right. So we wanted to see how much salt could be dissolved in 50 milliliters of water. And I wanted you to keep adding salt until no more salt would dissolve in the water. And when no more salt dissolves in the water, you should see that the particles settle on the bottom. I'm going to flip mine. All right, when no more salt dissolves, it sits on the bottom. You can see it, right? If it's a solution, it should be dissolved, and you shouldn't be able to see the salt particles. But when a salt no longer dissolves in a liquid, you have reached saturation, right? When no more solid, no more of the solute, right? The solute can dissolve into the solvent. You have made a saturated solution. That's what a saturated solution is, right? So when a solid material is added to a solution until no more of that material will dissolve, that is what a saturated solution is. So you have all made a saturated salt solution. So now your next question is, how can you tell when you have made a saturated solution? Question, you're going to write, how can you tell when you have made a saturated solution? All right. Now, we have made a saturated solution. So we've saturated our salt water, right? Our water. We made a solution and we know that it is saturated. No more will dissolve. But what our goal is, we need to figure out how much salt was dissolved. What did it take to saturate that solution? How much salt did we need to put into the solvent to saturate it? So now this is your question. You have 2 questions. This is 2-part questions. I want you to make a prediction or write down how many grams of salt. This is your prediction. You're not doing it right now. But your question is, how many grams of salt did it take to saturate 50 milliliters of water? That's your question, and I want you to make a prediction, right? Question number 2 is, what is your plan to be able to find out how much salt was saturated, right? So question number 1 is predict how many grams of salt it took to make a saturated salt solution. I'm walking around my house as I do this. And question number 2 is, what is your plan to figure out how much salt was dissolved in the water to make a saturated solution? All right, so those are your questions. This is going to be your science class, all right? So there's a lot that I asked you to do, right? We were writing in our journal we're making predictions, and we're also saturating a salt solution. So again, remember, those of you who have to watch this in Miss Payne's class, please do your work and then upload your pictures by Friday night, October 18th. All right, I want to see that you watched the video and that you attended class and did the work. All right, if you want to be my best friend, you upload pictures of your saturated solution. Maybe show me, your salt particles at the bottom. Now that would be cool to see. But there's your work, class. Again, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there. I had a conflict that I had to attend. But I wish you the best. I miss you guys. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you soon.